This week on our news recap, Intel comes under fire both internally and externally. Some other news hit the fan at the gaming industry regarding their work and employment practices, and as per usual, we have some of the latest rumors and, unconfirmed information regarding mostly next generation GPUs that we're going to go through at the end, so a grain of salt for that. So hello there guys, this is PC Guy here, and this is our weekly news recap on the tech and gaming industry, where we are going to be following, the most important news in the field, mostly of tech, sometimes in gaming if there's anything interesting to talk about, and kind of try to insert our opinion a little bit there if warranted. We do have some unconfirmed information, mostly towards the end of the video, so take that with a grain of salt, and I only mention it because people find that interesting to kind of know what to expect and what might be arriving in next generation products. First of all, let's start with Intel. The hit piece this week has definitely been Intel with a massive 20GB leak of private IP data or intellectual property, for those who are unaware of what it means, kind of making its way and surfacing on Reddit. It has been posted and Intel has updated the situation saying that the files are indeed genuine, but Intel has not been hacked and the files were acquired from an external server where they were stored to be used by partners and other approved people, so that's where the files originated, and it's not like the hackers actually breached Intel security or anything like that. There is a list of some of the things that those files contain. It is a lot, 20GB. I do not encourage anyone to actually go and get them, because we don't know if there's anything malicious buried in those files altogether, any malware or anything of the sort, and they probably have been illegally obtained anyway. So in any case, a lot of things there are interesting. They have, for example, binaries for camera drivers Intel made for SpaceX, so that's some very specific, very high profile things, let's say, as well as information about various generations and all that sort of stuff. The full list is here, or at least somewhat full list, so this is kind of the information that you can expect to be in this file. Now, no doubt some people will analyze over these files and come up with all sorts of interesting information over the next few weeks or months. It is a lot to sift through, and you obviously need some sort of knowledge in the field to actually make any sense of it. But in the actual leak, what the leaker actually encouraged people to do is to look for mentions of backdoors in the files. So kind of implying that there might be some sort of Intel backdoor on their technology that would allow them to take a peek inside your system if they so chose to. But so far there have been no actual mentions to that. And let's face it, it would be kind of strange for them to put a backdoor to your system and actually label it so clearly backdoor on the files that they then put on external servers and whatever. So if such a thing actually existed, I think this is not how you would find it, but it's fun to speculate, I guess, and I guess they maybe are trying to throw some mud at Intel, whether it's warranted or not. On the internal front, things are also not really going amazing for Intel, or former internal front, I might add. Former employee at Intel that actually held a pretty high position there, Piednoel, I hope I pronounced it right, has launched a video on his YouTube channel. He now doesn't have a massive following, 570 followers right now, if I see it correctly. But in any case, his video is literally titled "How to Fix Intel." So he mostly goes on he makes some very valid points, but he makes also some very strong criticisms regarding the leadership of the company and how the bookkeepers basically are running the business, and how he feels like engineers should be in charge to actually lead it on the correct direction, given that it is a tech company and engineering is at its core. So it is a very interesting watch. If you have not yet, I encourage you to look up his YouTube channel and watch the video if you are interested in this kind of thing. He makes all sorts of comments on a lot of things. It is all stuff that is not under NDA, so it's not in the same category as the leak that we just described. So it might be an interesting watch if you are into this kind of thing. He makes some very valid points that, for example, that AVX 512 is kind of pointless. It's the same point that Linus Torvald did not so long ago when he commented on it and called it a power virus, because it makes no sense and it only just looks good on benchmarks. And yeah, it does kind of give you an insight into the mind of the people that worked or have worked at high positions at such companies. This next post is probably belonging better in the leaks section at the end of the video, but I felt like I should mention it here with the actual factual information for one single reason. It has been pretty much vetted by Gamers Nexus. They are not in the habit of releasing faulty or doubtful information. They got their information from board partners, so it's somewhat reliable, I guess. So I will, even though it's not confirmed, I will incline to believe it. According to them, the GTX RTX 3000 series from NVIDIA is going to be announced or revealed around September 9th, probably on September 9th, but at that, around that time, let's say. This is a bit different from the rumors that we had seen. It would be announced in August and released in September. However, there's nothing stopping it from being announced on around the September 9th and then still released on later in September. So that's definitely a possibility. Pricing, specs, etc. Are still unknown. There's rumors about that as per usual, but not worth going into it here right now. And well, yeah, I do kind of hope that we hear anything about this card soon enough. Next up, we have trouble stirring in the gaming industry once again regarding work practices and actual compensation. At Blizzard, apparently, a file has been circulated where people can anonymously kind of tell others how much they make, and they have been using it to kind of see how the wages have been evolving in the past few years, etc. So there is a bit of an uproar because some employees, for example, claim they have had to skip meals to make ends meet as far as things like paying rent goes, while CEO Bobby Kotick is making 40 million a year salary. And they mind you that Blizzard last year has laid off a huge chunk of its customer support employee force and then turned around to announce a record year. So it's a bit understandable that people are a bit bitter about it if they are being laid off and then the company has one of its best years ever in terms of profits. Company spokesperson Jessica Taylor reports that this year top performers had a salary increase 20% more than prior years, that the salary investment is consistent with prior years, and that more people have received promotions compared to prior years. So according to Activision, this is definitely not a thing, but apparently people are still feeling the hurt. Also on the gaming front, even though it's something that is not quite as shocking, let's say, Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access was scheduled for August, but apparently it's not going to happen. The studio was hit pretty hard with the whole pandemic situation and all that, so there were delays, and they are kind of working on getting it as soon as possible. However, the August date is really not going to be a thing. We are expecting more information on August 18th when they're going to have a launch date reveal panel. Until then, well, sit tight for the next episode in the Baldur's Gate series. A few weeks back, some entries kind of got found on some databases about Intel chips, specifically from the 10th generation Comet Lake, the 10900Ks, etc., with a KA suffix, which has not been used before. For those unaware, K is the unlocked for overclocking variant. The F is the ones without the graphics, the integrated graphics, so you can also have KF, which is unlocked without integrated graphics. And now there is another variant that got data mined a few weeks back, and we kind of now have an inkling of what it might be. It is the A variant, or KA if they are overclocked, and it turns out that they might be for an Avengers edition Comet Lake CPU lineup. So this is most likely just a new fancy box with the Comet Lake CPUs, so no actual difference in performance, etc. as far as we know. And it's not something that Intel has done before in the past, but with their lack of popularity right now, they might be trying to kind of get back up at it. Now entering the leaks and unconfirmed information section, so take it off a grain of salt, and we are starting with some info about supposedly Ryzen's new flagship for the Zen 4, Zen 3 Ryzen 4000 series on desktop, which is supposed to be the 4950X, which will replace the 3950X as the mainstream flagship. It is apparently, according to Igor's lab, which got his hands on a code for the processor, supposed to be again the 16-core platform. with a 3.5 GHz base clock and 4.8 GHz boost clock. This is all we know of the part right now, if it is even valid and real code. But if that is true, well, it is a pretty nice improvement over the 3950X, and it should also come with improvements in IPC and architecture, much like, well, all the new CPUs from that generation will. Next piece is kind of in contradiction to the one that we mentioned earlier about the 9th of September date, or at least somewhat in contradiction, and I'm more inclined to believe that one than this one, but I will report on it anyway since it was in the news cycle this week. So apparently kind of a somewhat loose news schedule for the release of the RTX 3000 series kind of got out, and supposedly the August announcement that we were hearing about is going to be for the 3080 Ti, 3080 and 3070, with the launch happening on September 17th. In October we would have the 3070 launch, and November the 3060 launch, supposedly with basically cards lower down the stack getting released later in the year or possibly the next year, like for example possibly a 3050 series or whatever they want to call it. In any case, this is unofficial information. It does contradict other leaks, like the more reliable one that I mentioned earlier, and none of it is really confirmed, so take it how you want it. For our last piece, some insight, or supposed insight that is, because it's a rumor as well, on AMD's design process for their GPUs. Apparently they are already busy designing Navi 4 or 41 or 4X or whatever you want to call it, so we're talking about 2 generations ahead of the big Navi that we're all waiting for, so that's quite of a leap. So the Navi 21 or big Navi is still not here, supposedly coming out around November or later in the year. 31, not much is known at this point other than the fact that it is supposed to have, similar to the Ryzen processors, a chiplet approach with different chips in it as opposed to a monolithic die. And well, other than that, nothing really is known about 41 other than it is supposedly in the works. So that's about it. So these have been the highlights in the tech and gaming industry for the week. Hope you guys have caught up with some news that you maybe might have missed, and it has been useful for you guys. So if it was, hit that subscribe button. That'll help us grow more in the future, do more and better content for everyone, and everyone is happy. And if you regret it, you can always unsubscribe later, so it's not like it costs you anything. Hope I'll see you in the next video, and in the meantime, have fun.